Hey, Bill.
Good evening, Kirk.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Uh, Thanks for joining us. And
What you have up there is very ambitious.
it is very ambitious. Yeah, 51 verses. You see my question mark over here?
Yeah,
I got to writing stuff out, and I was like, we're gonna need to put an asterisk by that.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to get that far.
Yeah. So there's 51 verses in Matthew chapter 24, and it's going to be ambitious to get there, mainly because I feel like we need to do a quick, not like recap, but reminder. Uh, do you have any headings in your Bible, like little where it says what this passage is about?
Well, let's see. I've got uh, in Matthew chapter 23, I've got woe to the scribes and the Pharisees.
Yeah.
And
What about
then
what about in 24? What does
the
it say?
end of the age.
End of the age. Yeah.
Yeah.
So end of the age, kind of important here.
Yeah.
Because clearly we read this particular passage of scripture and immediately go end times.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It leans almost right away toward future things. I mean, when Jesus is speaking to his disciples, he's pointing toward the end of not only his life but theirs.
Yes.
And I would have to say that he's pointing toward future uh, in relationship to what we think nowadays.
Yes. So remind me, if you can, the eschatological ideology. Wow, I'm using big words right there.
Yeah, well, quit it. You explain it.
Then. Of the Jewish people. They had these Jewish eschatology can be seen two different ways. You remember us talking about this?
A long time ago, though.
Yeah. We got the people who the biggest most influential one in the area was two-part eschatology.
Okay.
Right? You remember that? Remember us talking about that?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is,
yeah,
it's been a while.
So the two-part eschatology in the Jewish would be there's in Jewish thought, and really it influences our Christian thought significantly. There was this age, and then there was the age to come.
Okay.
The age to come, defined by God reigning and ruling, purifying, reigning forever, being an eternal kingdom, sin being cast out, and redemption purpose, everybody living in harmony back to the garden full on.
Okay.
Okay? Where in the present age, what do we deal with? Sinfulness and rebellion.
Yeah, everything which is
destruction
goes against it, what we think as a perfect harmonious life. Yeah.
Right. And so in the Jewish culture, this eschatological view, the age to come, was the eternal kingdom, but it was still here.
Yeah, they figured there was a heaven on earth, or
yes,
controlled partly by men.
So there are some people who believed, get the Romans out of here, but God won't get the Romans out of here. The Messiah is coming to get the Romans out of here and restore everything.
Right.
And then he's going to set up his kingdom and rule and reign, and the new age is going to come.
Yeah, and since they've been always told in their history that he would rule on the throne of David.
Yes.
And the throne of David was in Jerusalem.
Yeah, he was going to.
Why not have it here?
He was going to drive out all the other ones, all the non-believers, and it was going to be this believer hub central that was perfect and harmonious and ruled by God and by the Messiah, sitting on the throne of David forever, literally, physically sitting on the throne of David forever and ever. Amen.
Right.
And that was going to be the age to come. This age to come. But in order for that break to happen, there had to be a confession of everything, the cleansing of everything, and the reestablishing. That was their big deal.
Yeah. Well, here's a
That would be
question.
2 parts.
Question real quick.
Yes.
Did they think that they would be the only ones allowed in this heaven?
Yes.
Because they were the chosen,
Yes.
the children of promise.
Everybody else is going to be cast out
Okay.
into the place where there's weeping and gnashing of teeth.
Right.
Then we get 3-part eschatology. Says there's this age and there's the age to come, and they overlap. There's this position of overlap where the sinfulness of this age and the depravity and the lack of understanding of this age dwindles, but the growth of the kingdom and God's purpose and God's purification and God's people and their purpose and their mission and their effectiveness continues to grow until it overpowers and the old kingdom is gone and the old way is gone and everything's new, and then there's a new age and the Messiah is sitting on the throne, and it overlaps a little bit. It's really the differences between 2-part and 3-part eschatology.
The 2-part means that there would be a definite ending.
Yes,
to the first.
A dramatic ending.
Okay.
And changeover. And either way, we get from this blended. So in 3-part, you have this age, you have a blended age, and then you have the age to come.
Okay.
And in 2-part, it's this age, finite happening, age to come, all or nothing kind of thing.
Yeah, which would include what I guess the zealots had planned, saying,
Yes.
Here's where our battle begins. And then,
so the zealots, it was, we're going to do it with force,
right.
with righteous force, with righteous violence.
Right.
The Essenes said, we're going to see it happen because we prepare the word and we stay faithful to God, and God will handle the Romans. And the Pharisees said, we have to take care of worshiping God and honoring Him and get our worship right and get our act right and God will take care of the Romans. And the Sadducees and the Herodians said, what's wrong with the zealots? Or what's wrong with the zealots? What's wrong with the
Romans?
Let's
just
why
live and
can't
let
God
live.
do it? Well, yeah. Why can't God do it while this is all going on too?
Yeah.
Maybe God is using this to benefit us more. And so that's the eschatology going on. So we finished chapter 23.
Right.
And Jesus is at the Temple Mount. Yes?
Yes.
And we're going to read the first 3 verses of Matthew 24, and then we're going to talk about that first. So what's going on in Matthew chapter 24? They get done into 23. Jesus gets done on the Temple Mount doing this teaching and this challenging. And now what's happening in the beginning of chapter 24?
It says in verse 21 or verse 1, and Jesus went out and departed from the temple.
So he's leaving the temple.
Right. And his disciples came to him. And it said in the New King James, it says, for to show him the buildings of the temple.
That's what mine says.
And Jesus,
disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple.
Now, explain that in a way we can understand it. The buildings.
So the Temple Mount was under major construction because of what Herod was doing.
Yes, right.
He was building up this big block where the temple was going to sit and be erected, and it's quite a marvelous thing. I wish I had some pictures to be able to show it. It was pretty impressive, and this is what the disciples are pointing out. They're like, look at this work that is happening. There's multiple layers of hewn rock that is laid together, specifically quarried to where it interconnects and lines up together. It was laid without any mortar, but it's so tight and fits so well together that you can't even get a piece of paper between the rocks.
Yes, I've heard that.
And now when I say rocks, what are you thinking? So Chelsea, if I say rocks, the rocks of the temple, the foundation, what are you thinking? So we're talking about so this is hewn stone, cut stones that are they're quarried. They're about as tall as the sound booth back there, so about 3.5 feet tall each one, and they're larger than the space of that sound booth. Are the ones that you can walk by publicly. They are hundreds of tons apiece. The likes of which we would struggle to move with our heaviest equipment and get into place. We would struggle with our heaviest equipment. Matter of fact, there are rocks that are used under that foundation that are in what they call the rabbi tunnels underneath what is the Temple Mount that are as many as 1,000 to 2,000 tons of rock, a single rock, a single foundation stone
Okay.
that is quarried so that the sides are smooth and it interconnects one with another and it doesn't require mortar. 2,000 tons is 4 million pounds. And they moved it and built it in the 1st century.
Okay.
So this is quite an impressive feat that's happening. We don't know how they did it. We're not sure that we could do it today.
And well, we hear talk of how the pyramids were built in Egypt.
Yeah, there's a crazy thing going on with that. Did you know this?
Yes, about the building underneath.
The stuff underneath the pyramids of Giza. Any idea? Did you know this? Did you hear about this?
Yeah. Eight columns that go down
600 meters.
Yeah, a couple kilometers deep.
696 meters deep.
Mm-hmm.
Hollow.
8 columns.
8
underneath.
columns that are hollow under every under all the pyramids.
The three big pyramids.
All of the 3 pyramids of Giza. They are columns that are hollow in the middle that are 636 meters deep.
Mm-hmm. They detected it with a new type of sonar.
Has circular, looks like staircase type of things around the outside.
That's how they were built, so that they could continue to raise them up, but they're level on the top.
And there's a box, a square, at the bottom of them. There are 4 cube spaces underneath them, and there are 6 buildings inside of them that have sloped roofs inside of and chambers that are unexplored inside the pyramids of Giza.
They
found
know
this out
existed.
last month. Didn't know it existed. Right. Found it last month. Imagine that. And they're like, how, why? We couldn't drill and dig holes like that today. We couldn't make a 20-meter wide hole 600 meters or 636 meters deep in the earth and then just line it with rock perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it just.
But these were already built, and I think that this discovery coming at this day and age is just amazing. But now to talk about the stones that are perfectly hewn underneath the Temple Mount.
Yes.
We know that they have existed for some time.
Yeah, they were. It was being built. It was under construction.
Right.
And being put together at this time during the 1st century when Jesus so the disciples are in awe of this building project that is happening.
And Jesus said unto them, don't you see all of these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down.
So imagine that.
He's predicting the downfall of a temple that's not even built.
Yes. Hey, that temple is not put together yet, but those are some gigantic stones. I know you can see that. I'm telling you, there won't be one of those stones left sitting on top of another. And it's like, well, these guys are having a hard enough time getting it up there. I can't imagine somebody tearing that thing down.
Yeah.
You go on a tour of Jerusalem now over by what is the Temple Mount. You'll see the remnants of stones that are thrown down as a that were never picked back up, scattered, that are at the base of what is the Temple Mount now.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see this happening, and this is the setting for Matthew 24. They're coming off of the mountain, coming from the temple, and they're walking by, and the disciples say, "Hey Jesus, look at this. Look at that. Look at that construction project." Or they're driving by that house that I now never noticed really, along the road between here and Bartlesville. You know what I'm talking about? Where it was like, wow, what is taking them so long? Yeah.
Way up on the hill.
Yeah, way up on the hill. And it took forever for them to get it done. But they kept working, and now that I don't notice it, I assume it's done. Or pretty much done enough to where
there are people living there now.
Looks
sure.
Yeah. And so, but it's still something to look at. I mean, I think we pay attention. We were building a house in town. I'm pretty sure half the neighborhood just randomly drove by to see how the progress was going.
Sure they did.
I know the neighbor came out and just sat on the driveway and watched people work. It was a good pastime for him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, he enjoyed it.
Yeah, he was so tired he had to move.
Yeah.
Yeah, he sold the house. But I'm just saying, people pay attention to construction projects. This particular one was extremely impressive.
Look at the old days in New York where the construction companies would build wooden walls to keep you safe, and then they'd cut holes in them so you could see what was going on.
Yeah.
And the workers would stare back out at you. But that was
Yeah.
sidewalk that's where the term sidewalk superintendent came into being.
That's hilarious.
You could look through the hole and say, "Hey, what's going on?"
So there's this.
But it's important that, I think, in any construction project, it's important that the work be shown, because in our case, building a house, anybody driving by say, "Hey, who's building that?"
Yeah.
We are. Oh, maybe you could build me one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you've got this gigantic building project with these incredible feats of unreasonable happenings, and Jesus says, "Hey, this thing's going to be turned over.
Yep.
Not going to be a stone left on top of itself." And then they worked their way back to where they were resting. Where were they resting?
Mount of Olives.
Mount of Olives. And so what happens in verse 3?
And he sat upon the Mount of Olives, and the disciples came unto him privately, saying, "Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of your coming, and the end of the world?"
So it's the end of, so literal translation would be the end of the age. So they're kind of distraught.
But notice it says thy coming or your coming.
Yes.
So they know he's coming back. They're believing now that what he has told them in the past. He said, "Not until I return."
So here's the question that they have. Like, the question that they're wrestling with is, when they say the sign of your coming, are they asking what's going to be the sign of your, like, you're going to leave and then come
When
back?
you're going to sit on the throne is what they're really asking.
Yeah, what's the sign of your coming? What's the sign of your inauguration? Your beginning?
Yep.
I mean, you've been doing all this work and doing all this teaching, and you said you had to die, and, right? Hasn't he foretold his death a couple of times?
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to my death, and they're like, well, in case you don't die.
Well, Peter even challenged him, saying that's not true, Lord.
That's right.
And he told him, "Get away from me, Satan. Don't be lying to that or telling that story." Yeah.
So they just are confused.
Yeah.
It seems that Jesus is trying to answer them, and he's going to try to answer them, because they're interested in, what does the end of the age look like? Because whether it's 2-part or 3-part, at some point, Jesus is coming back,
Well, no,
or Jesus is
Jesus
gonna,
is going to be on the throne.
yeah, Jesus is gonna be on the throne.
Yeah.
And the question is, like, they didn't say coming back; they said the sign of your coming.
Yeah.
And so, does that mean like after whatever happens now, or is there going to be an interruption? Like, what are we talking about here, right?
Yeah. Well, they're confused because they've learned of the 3-part, 2-part eschatology too in their short life. And keep in mind, these are still teenagers.
And they're asking like a 2 or 3-part question that Jesus has to answer.
Right.
When will this be?
Give us a sign.
When will this be? What is the sign?
And they're asking then
sign of your coming.
in the end of the world.
And what's the sign of the end of the age?
Right.
Because their theology wasn't the end of the world, was it?
No, it was the end of this
End of this
conflict,
age.
this end of this Roman rule. Yeah.
Yeah. And so this is the foundation of what we're dealing with. Jesus is about to respond to this question. We immediately associate with it and jump into our prognostication. I told you we're going to get controversial here. People read this particular passage and they go, well, this is what is going to be the end of the world. This is how the end of the world happens. But they're asking Jesus a pretty specific question.
They're asking about when will the Romans no longer be
when
on our neck. Yeah.
They said they were looking at this building project and said, that's an impressive building project. And he said, you see those stones? And they're like, how could you not see them? And he says, there's not going to be a stone left on top of the other.
Okay, what do you suppose they thought of that as utter destruction, or
so they're struggling,
a mighty battle, or something?
That's the thing. So when he says those things aren't going to stand one on top of another, they get to another space and walk away from the Temple Mount, and they get back into their safe haven, back to their place of rest, and they're troubled by it, it would seem. And they say, hey, how is this supposed to happen? How are people supposed to pick up that gigantic rock and all of those things that are put together to make this temple work? How are they supposed to do that? When is that supposed to happen? Like, I just don't see how that happens. And so if we're waiting on that, then what's the sign of your coming? And I think the implication is you're coming to rule.
Yeah, well, they're
when's your took us sitting in that chair up there?
Yeah,
so we can move forward.
They're not expecting Jesus to transition anywhere other than to go from their rabbi to their king at this point. Don't you? I mean, isn't that what they're assuming in their thoughts?
I think so.
Say, you're going from this space here to the Temple Mount to be king.
Yeah, it would seem that's what they're.
And I'm wondering if any of them were wondering, what's my place in all of this?
And it's interesting because like he was the triumphal entry the first time he came in,
right?
And everybody was celebrating him, but then he went to the temple and didn't take a spot, or a hook, or a like he didn't hang his banner and say it's my place now. He walked up to the temple and cleaned people out and walked on his way.
Yeah. Well, he did exclaim that this was his Father's house.
Yes. It's just a crazy happening. And so they want to know, what will the sign of your coming and the end of the age? What's those signs going to look like? And Jesus said to them, see that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and will lead many astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am what?
Yep,
And
verse
you
6.
will hear of wars and rumors of wars. Will is the same first word. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that you are not alarmed. For this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. And all these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Now, what are we talking about?
Well, he's given them a little glimpse of the future. But the future that is yet to come.
It would seem it'd be the future that's yet to come, the things that are on their way for who?
For them.
For them.
But they're kids.
So it seems like the stirring up of all of these, it seems like he's setting the stage for the things that are to come in terms of how this life that he's in the middle of is going to go. It seems like he is talking to his disciples about this question that they asked. And that is, how are they going to turn over the temple? How are they going to flip this thing upside down and make it different? And he says, first of all, I need you to know there's some signs that you can see. And they said, what's that? First thing you need to know is it's going to be chaotic. It's going to be chaotic. And the best thing for you to do is don't be led astray. Don't let somebody lead you astray. Be strong in your faith. And then if you're strong in your faith, you get a lot further. You get a lot further by faithfulness. Don't be led astray by this craziness. And then he says, not only is there going to be chaos and craziness, but there's going to be people coming saying they're the Messiah. Why would people in the Jewish community want to come and say they're the Messiah?
Well, a lot of them still didn't believe that Jesus was the Messiah.
Okay. So even if Jesus is the Messiah or is not the Messiah, why would those people coming behind try to confess they're the Messiah? What might be happening at this point?
Okay, let's think about it this way. If Jesus didn't take the throne, there may be someone coming after him that would ascend to the throne or try to, or to say, I'm here to take the throne of David.
And whose kingdom? We talked on Sunday about the descendants of Herod the Great, right?
Right. His 3 sons.
Whose group controls, whose division of the kingdom of Israel / Herod is in that southern portion?
I know you said it, and I'm gonna have
Archelaus? And Archelaus didn't last 2 years.
Yeah, they kicked him out.
Someone else got rule over the south.
Yeah, that was Pontius Pilate, assigned by the Romans.
Yes, Pontius Pilate. And so these false Christs, these false messiahs, they're trying to come in to rid the people of this oppressor, it would seem, right?
Well, okay, they would come in to say they claim to rid them of the false oppressor or
Yes.
the oppressor. But That doesn't mean that they would.
He says, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Father. No, saying, I am the Christ.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm the Christ.
Claiming that mantle, that Jesus.
Yeah. And they will lead many astray. So we've got this chaos going on. We've got these rumors. We've got false Christs because there's going to be wars and rumors of wars. There's going to be earthquakes in various places, famines in the land. That's like Tuesday afternoon around here, right? Wasn't there a season in the state of Oklahoma where there was like earthquakes all the time? Yeah, there were several in Oklahoma City, and I mean, you're going to hear people say what? Yeah, and there are many people who make claims about what's going on and why and how, and they make these declarations, and maybe um, maybe things will be different this time. But the Bible says that those are but the beginning. Those are but the beginning of the birth pains. Isn't that what everybody loves? That's just the first contraction, don't worry. These are Braxton Hicks.
Yeah, but Braxton Hicks don't have pain. They just happen.
They just happen.
There's no pain associated with Braxton Hicks. I heard that on TV the other night.
Huh.
I don't know it for sure, but that's what they said.
I'm not an expert on the situation. Verse 9 says, then they will deliver you up to tribulation, put you to death, and you will be hated by all nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. And many false prophets will arise and lead many astray. We're still leading many astray.
Right.
Seems like we've been down this road. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this gospel is the gospel of the kingdom. This gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So the question is, the guy that I listened to, he said he was in Bible college, and he had to do a report over this particular chapter. And the report was why it started out as an answer to the disciples and transitioned to an end times prophetic declaration. And he examined in his mind where this all is going to happen. This lawlessness is going to increase. The love of many will grow cold. We're going to see all of these signs, all of these birth pains, and they're going to continue to grow, and then the end's going to come. And it's like, but it says this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So here's my question. What point did we stop talking about the answer to the disciples' question and start talking about the end of the world or a prophetic things to come? As if like, I know I'm telling you people, but it's not about you, it's about other people. When did that transition happen? Did it happen? This is the controversial part.
Okay,
Or one of them.
in verse 6, where he starts to say, he says that you will hear rumors of wars.
Uh-huh. You don't think that was true at the time?
It's hard to say because Rome was not necessarily at peace, but Rome wasn't. Uh, in reality, Rome had almost finished their warring because in the not too distant future, they would be split up.
Sure.
The kingdom, the Roman Empire would fall in the first century. You're talking about the fall of the Roman Empire, where
Yes.
other nations had taken over Roman territories. The
Yep.
Saxons and the Gauls and everybody else had came against Rome. So the Roman Empire was in and of itself was divided into east and west. And from that point, the downfall of the Roman Empire occurred. So obviously the disciples didn't know this, but history has told us that that war or rumors of war had to be, I would look at this and say, many years past where they were seeing conflicts at themselves. So if he's starting to talk about the future at verse 6, wars and rumors of wars. Now,
Do you think he could still be talking about right then? The things that are to come right there? Because didn't they have a fight? Didn't Josephus
but see, that's
end up in a fight and was adopted by Nero?
But look at that as an uprising, just like everything else. It was an uprising quickly put down by the Romans.
Sure.
It wasn't a war. I mean, they didn't.
Well, that's
have
what
a
I'm
chance.
saying. Like it's wars and rumors of wars.
Yeah, but they didn't have. They would have known they wouldn't have had a chance against the Roman army.
Well, did they? I mean, they did celebrate Passover, so.
Well, no, that was a bargain that Herod had made.
Well, I'm just saying, in the celebration of Passover, they've seen God overcome their enemy before.
Yes, they have.
And they're a feisty group.
But at that point, if they look back at their own history, God overcame the enemy with almost no help. Or he would say, take 3,000, take 300, take 30, and he defeated them overnight just with shouts.
Yeah.
So it was in their history to say, well, we haven't fought a battle in a long time. I'm talking about this era where Jesus has been for the last 30 years. They haven't really been fighting anybody. They've been coexisting with a tormentor.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
that's why I look at verse 6 and say, okay, wars and rumors of wars.
So my question is, even in that, is there a chance that we're stretching it to chase the end time stuff if they're just talking about the end of this age?
Okay, the end of the age of
the Jewish age, the age that is the end of this age and then the age to come, right? Remember that Jewish eschatology we talked about?
Yeah, they're thinking that, okay, but they're still thinking of the abstract or the kingdom on earth at that point.
Well, and so I see a lot more Jesus just, again, he's a rabbi teaching about things he can see, touch, taste, smell.
So that he can point those things out to his disciples, because that's how they learned and that's how they've always understood his teachings.
So
pointing
let's
at mountains, pointing at
so let's
trees.
Continue forward in verse 15. So when the abomination of desolation, spoken by the prophet Daniel, standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in the house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back to take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and those who are nursing infants in those days. Pray that your flight may not be in winter or on a Sabbath. For then there will be great tribulation, such as has not been taken from the world, from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be. And if those days had been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will not be, or will be cut short. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great miracles. Perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, look, here in the wilderness, do not go out. If they say, look, he is in the inner room, so will be the coming of the Son of Man, who wherever the corpse is, there the vulture will gather. It's a lot going on right there, isn't there?
Yeah, he's talking about the end. He's talking about the end times.
Is he?
Of the end of a world.
Is he?
Well, I don't know, but that's what he sounds like he's talking about.
False Christ and false prophets.
Well, yeah, but he's talking about that the tribulation period that we all look at in Revelation.
Sure. He's going to talk about that here in just a second too.
But he already spoke about Daniel, so they would know something of the prophet Daniel.
It seems that he's making a lot of references that would go back.
Sure. Well, he's given them that hint, that remez, that idea that kingdoms will fall.
He's already referenced abomination of desolation that Daniel talked about.
Right. But if so many people, well, even now, if you read the book of Daniel, in that part of Daniel, and then you refer back then to Revelation, you come here to chapter 24, you look at these, and they're all very similar in their scope of, okay, this not as well. I don't think Jesus is not putting himself in as a soothsayer or a visionary. He's just telling him that this is how you can perceive the future.
Yeah.
But the book of Daniel, in talking about the kingdoms that have fallen, he predicts even then Rome's destruction.
Remind me again the question that the disciples asked. When will this happen? Talking about the turning over the temple.
Right. When will it be your time?
And then, when will it be your time? And what would the end of the age? So they're asking about a throne, it would seem.
Right.
And Jesus is answering and saying, well, all of these things have to happen before I sit on a throne. And it would seem that we misunderstand the throne. You know what I mean?
Well, did they look at it as an earthly throne, or did they look at it as a throne where he goes to sit with his Father, where he sits now? There are in our understanding, there are two possibilities. There's a throne here. They're thinking of the throne of David, which is what they all knew about, but they didn't understand what the throne of the Father would have been.
So when they're now in the place where Jesus has come and he's done all these miracles, and he says that there are going to be people who come and say, he's over here, come see the Christ, or he's over there. Jesus says, don't listen to him.
Right. Don't be dissuaded. Don't be deceived.
Why would he have to tell them
that? I don't know why. Because of he's warning them of false understandings.
He is doing some warning of false understandings, I think, but he's also just flat out answering their question. He's going to go on to say, see, I have told you beforehand.
Which verse?
Do, 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 do. We already read this, right? Pray for that your flight will not be in winter or on Sabbath.
Yes. You read through 25.
For then there will be. Then if anyone says, I'm in verse 23. Then if anyone says, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you beforehand. So if they say to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out. And if they say, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. And immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet call, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Four winds, it sounds like something that's in the Old Testament, doesn't it?
Yes.
From the fig tree, learn its lesson. Wait, what are we talking about? Fig tree.
If it doesn't bear good fruit, it'll be destroyed.
Yes. As
That's what
soon
happened.
as its branch becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near.
Right.
So also when you see all these things, you know that he is near at the very gates. And truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Seems like there's going to be a lot of chaos. There's going to be a lot of false teachers trying to lead people astray. There's going to be wars and rumors of wars.
Earthquakes. Yes.
Earthquakes in various places. But then, false prophets.
Yeah.
But then he says, heaven and earth will pass away. No, truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away.
Till all these things are fulfilled. He's not talking about them.
So, who is he talking about? What generation is not going to pass away? So if he's talking about future, why would he say that?
Well, it had to be a generation of believers.
So he's trying to point us, in my opinion, he's trying to point us in a direction of stability.
Well, he's
in the midst of chaos,
like his efforts always before, and God's message is one of peace.
Mm-hmm.
Till such time as peace covers the earth, as the gospel is shared throughout the world, then the time of peace has to be there.
Right.
Then, what it appears is when the fig tree, the leaves will sprout.
Sure.
Then he will be at the door.
Yeah.
So, is he telling about wait until that happens?
It would seem that he's telling them that maybe what was the point of the fig tree again? You remember?
If the fig, well,
What were the figs? What are the figs representative of?
sweetness,
What is sweet in the culture of Abraham?
love, of peace.
Um,
I'm hitting the right word, obviously.
yeah, I mean, you're right there. I'm just saying that he's saying that there's this chaos that's coming, and there's false Christs that are coming. There's rumors that are happening, and when you find yourself in a situation like that, in chaos, people making false claims, people spreading rumors, what do you have to hold on to? What? How can you endure that?
Only through your faith.
Through faith and the truth, right? You'll know the truth, and truth will set you free. So it would seem that this declaration by Jesus is, hey, chaos. Chaos is coming. There's a lot of people who are going to claim to be me, claim to know where I am, and they're going to invite you out. Don't go. Wars, rumors of wars, all of these things stirring up. Said, but it's one thing you can hold on to. My word. Heaven and earth and everything in it is going to pass away. It's going to be used up. It's going to be carried off. It's going to be destroyed. But there's nothing you can do about changing any of those things. Your only option is to hold on to the word.
Okay.
The word will lead you. The word will guide you. He says this, but concerning the day and the hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. For as were the days of Noah, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Remind me of the days of Noah real quick.
Chaos.
Lots of chaos.
Unbelief.
Lots of unbelief.
And then when God gave Noah the commandment or the word or the plans to build the ark,
yes,
he also gave everybody else a chance to
join in.
To join in. Be a part. See what Noah's doing. This is my plan. And then I will.
So how did it go?
Well, Noah followed the plan. Noah followed the rules. Noah gathered the animals. Noah gathered his family. And there were no other believers. There were no false prophets, though. They were looking to Noah. They only had Noah to believe, and they didn't believe Noah. So when it started to rain, it was too late.
It was too late. It was too late. For as were the days of Noah, so will the coming of the Son of Man. For as in those days before the flood, there was eating, drinking, marrying, and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark, and they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. In terms of Noah, good to be preserved or swept away, taken away.
Got to be preserved.
Got to be preserved. In the Jewish culture of eschatology and the way that we read the Bible and Jewish scripture, something that is kind of important. Remaining. Remaining is important. So let's...
Remaining in what context?
Remaining.
Just...
How about this context? They were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then 2 men will be in the field, and one will be taken and one left. 2 women will be grinding at the mill. One will be taken and one left. So if there's an impending conquering, you want to be the one that's carried off or the one that's left behind?
can take it two different ways.
Do you want to be carried off by your enemy?
No.
Or do you
But
want to
is
remain
he
in the
s-
house?
Is he saying that in this context?
Well, he references Noah.
Okay.
Is it better to remain in the land or to be swept away with the water?
Remained in the boat. That's that was the choice that they had. You either get on the boat or you be swept away.
Yes.
So you'll in this.
I'm not saying they have a choice.
No, it's saying, it says here that two men working in the field, one will be taken and the other one will stay. They wouldn't. There's no choice given. It was just.
Does it say that God's going to take them?
No. It says two men working in a field, one will be taken and one will remain. Doesn't say who takes what. And you can interpret it. That's why I say you can interpret it two different ways.
Yeah.
Because if you talk about the rapture, then
which is exactly where we go, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do they know anything about that when
no, they
Matthew's
don't know anything about
this?
that.
When Jesus is saying this, is there any indication of
A rapture? No.
There is a resurrection. They
Right.
believe in the resurrection.
Right.
But they've asked about the end of the age. What is the end of the age supposed to be about?
The end of the conflict, end of the kingdom, end of the
end of
previous
chaos,
kingdom.
end of fighting, end of wars.
Well, that's why he emphasized the gospel. And what is the gospel? We've talked about it time and time again. A new king, a new beginning, a new start to whatever is next.
Yes.
So that's why it's always the evangelion message. That here's the new kingdom. That's what they understand. The evangelion, that new gospel. That's what they understood.
Yes. Verse 41 says, 2 women will be grinding at the mill, one will be taken and one left. Therefore stay awake, for you do not know on what day the Lord is coming. But know this, that if the master of the house had known in what part of the night the thief was coming, he would have stayed awake and would have not let his house be broken into. Therefore you also must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an hour you do not expect. Who then is the faithful and wise servant, whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time? Who is that? If he's speaking to his disciples, and he's talking about the end of the age and these things that are going on, and he's like, you've got to be diligent. You've got to be paying attention. And then he asks the question, who then is the faithful and wise servant? Seems like he's referencing stuff that he said before, right? Who then is the faithful and wise servant whom his master has set over his household to give them their food at the proper time?
Jesus.
Is it Jesus? Jesus is standing there and he's talking to the disciples. Who was entrusted with the kingdom of heaven? Who was entrusted with God's people to make sure that there was food in his house so that people would have something to eat and to distribute it to the people? Where is his house? What is the house of the Lord at this particular time? It's in Jerusalem. It's the priests.
The priests are the servants.
The priests are supposed to be the faithful and wise servants who the master, who is God, right?
Okay.
Set over his house to give the people their food. Because who was supposed to be the people's source? God. Who was supposed to care for them? Who was supposed to feed them? Who was supposed to take care of all of their needs? And what was it they were supposed to give over and over and over and over and over and over again? What did they have to give? What were they protectors of? His word.
The word. Well, okay.
So Jesus is saying to them, God left caretakers over his house. And he says, blessed is the servant whom his master will find so doing when he comes. He says, truly I say to you, he will set him over all his possessions. But if that wicked servant says to himself, my master is delayed, and begins to beat his fellow servants, and eats and drinks with drunkards, the master of that servant will come on a day when he does not expect him, and an hour he does not know, and will cut him in pieces, and put him with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Seems like he still has it out for the priests.
Yeah, well, he's never cutting them any slack anyway.
And so he's still talking to his disciples about the role of the priests.
Yeah, and how, well, he's already shown them that the Pharisees and the Sadducees are in it for themselves and are not true servants.
Yes.
And he said that it's into them, you brood of vipers. He's already called them every name in the book.
Yeah. And so this is a deep dive in a confusing statement, and I really need to go on, but I need to stop here because I made it to 51, and there is no way I can get through the next part. But I'm going to say we jump into chapter 24, and I didn't do this on purpose, but I kind of did. We get into chapter 24 and we pluck it out and use it as an end times prophecy, as like this random thing. But if we will understand it as a declaration that ties chapter 23 and the work that was already happening and ties it in and then is completed in this parable teaching that happens in chapter 25, which we're going to get into next week. Probably next week and the week after, honestly, if we're all being honest. Go ahead.
So that's where you're saying that the controversy in the modern church happens.
Yes, the controversy in the modern church.
We take chapter 24, the first 51 verses.
Yeah.
And mix it in with Daniel.
Yeah, we try
Revelation.
We tie in some of these references that come from the Old Testament, and we go, clearly it's talking about all of the stuff that's happening in Revelation. And I'll say, yeah. Yes, we try to take it by itself instead of piecing it. Yeah. Yes.
Well, you'll miss the actual context of chapter 24, especially the first 51 verses.
Especially if you skip over the first couple verses.
Like I've said before, the melding of the Jewish understanding,
yeah,
and the Western understanding doesn't come in the modern Western church.
Oh, it does not. Yeah.
And it's, I think it's led people to go down a wrong path. Mm-hmm. And we talked about rabbit trails and saying, okay, you're following the wrong path. You need to take a look at that. But we never had teachers that come and say, okay, on the surface it looks like this, and I'm going to give you a hint. And if you take and go deeper, you'll understand where the Holy Spirit is leading you, especially in this.
And so I would say this, like to kind of wrap this up, I would say there's some key points that we need to be aware of, especially when Jesus is dealing with the end of the age. Whether it has come or it is to come, it clearly is to come. But when the Jewish disciples were listening to it, clearly it was still to come.
Mm-hmm. But he was warning them, and now it's coming, but
already not yet, I think would be the term.
The chaos that he refers to is already happening in their lives.
Yes.
Because these disciples have come with him from the Decapolis and all the way around Capernaum, all the way down to Jerusalem, and now he's already told them, I'm going to die, I'm going to my death. And like I said, they're teenagers, and he's confused them, but they're now beginning to understand where he's leading them, in their day, in their age,
And
and
I
their
think
time.
it's important too for us in our age and their age as well. Yes, for sure. Chaos is coming. Chaos is part of life. Chaos is kind of part of this transition period from that age, or like in the present age and the blending of the present age and the age to come, that at some point it's going to be. But there's chaos coming. There's things that are going to create disorder. um, it's like the second law of thermodynamics. um, and there's nothing we can do about it.
You want to share that with the unknowing?
Yes, the second law of thermodynamics says that
Body stays in motion.
no, thermodynamics. Second law of thermodynamics says that a any type of system
Oh, okay.
over time
Yeah, become
tends
chaotic.
towards entropy or chaos.
Right. Tends to fall apart.
And so this natural sinful state that we're in is going to find its way towards chaos. And there's nothing, we can't stop it. We are not an outside force, we're inside of it. And so we have to be aware that there are people who claim, there are people who are going to see the opportunity and make claims. They're even going to see an opportunity and make claims through signs and wonders that they are the Messiah to come, that they are the Christ, and that they have come, that he has come back. And there are going to be people who say, "Hey, you need to go see this person is the," and and they're putting their faith and their trust in a man, and that person is allowing people to put their faith and trust in him. And these false Christs are going to come, and there's nothing you can do about that either, except don't be don't be bamboozled, don't be confused, and don't be led astray.
What we've said from the beginning, trust the story.
Trust the story.
Yeah.
And there's going to be rumors. There's going to be rumors about things to come, and there's going to be rumors about wars and the failure of the market. No, the not failure of the market, the failure of the market, not failure of the market. Your currency's going bad. You're going to have to buy all this crypto, and then the crypto market dies, and they're like, no, buy a bunch of gold. And they're like, well, but you can't use that gold. Like
Yeah.
physical gold is the answer. So all these people are diversified into physical gold. That are they actually owning physical gold?
No, they own the promise of physical gold.
They own the promise of physical gold, and then what? You know what I mean? Like there's all of these doomsday preppers who are telling you that this is the new way. Y2K is coming, and Y2K came and went, and I don't remember our power going out and having to live on rations, and
computers didn't fail.
I didn't see any of that. And so you see all of this panic and all of this chaos and all of these rumors and confusion, and that's not God. All of those things are going to come and go.
Yeah.
They're going to pass away, Jesus says. But what's not going to pass away?
The word.
My word will not pass away. Our call is to endure.
Yeah. But we have to be able to
we are those
we have to be able to rightly divine the word.
Yes.
And that's where
when it comes to this particular passage of scripture, we don't want to be the ones who are carried away. We want to be the ones who endure and are faithful in the house of God. This is not a reference to the rapture. This is a reference to deception and carrying off by false Christs and false teachers and false prophets and invaders who would carry off the people who are not being faithful.
So it's not necessarily a carrying off, but a separation of understandings.
Yes.
If you understand the word, if you're true to the word, if you're faithful to the word, then you won't be misled by someone who's saying, no, you're not interpreting that right.
So our goal is to persevere and endure.
Right.
Through the chaos, through the rumors, through the falsehoods, through all those things. And the only way we're going to do it,
stay true to the word.
By knowing the word, staying true to the word, and leaning into the word. And being faithful to hand it out.
Right.
And there are people who have been charged with handing out the word, being the priest, and making sure that that food is available at all times.
Who haven't been good servants.
They haven't been good servants, and they're going to be tossed out with the actors. So that means we're being adopted to be a kingdom of priests,
Right.
to function in this
So
way and draw people in.
Taking that mantle
Yes.
of a priest, you have to be true to the word
Yes.
throughout. You can't be that false priest. You can't be that false servant.
And it's interesting that it says those who endure will be saved.
Right.
So even in the chaos, our call is to endure and be saved by the word of God.
Yeah. And if you're watching this, please tell someone else to be here next week.
Yeah, share it with them. You want to be here next week. It's going to be enlightening and maybe just as controversial. So join in.
I can guarantee it's going to be controversial.
So join in with us, Matthew chapter 25 next week. It's great to have had this conversation with you so far. Join us for the continuation of the conversation with these 3 parables that Jesus drops on the Mount of Olives.
Good night.